Called the Subsequent Injuries Benefit Trust Fund. This is a separate fund that's really funded by taxpayers' dollars, that if a few elements are met, an applicant can potentially apply for benefits. Now, this is something a lot of attorneys don't know much about, and they definitely don't know how to litigate this. I am a complete expert at this. Now, it's actually very complicated, but I'll try to simplify this as easily as I can. Basically, the Subsequent Injuries Benefit Trust Fund was set up when you have somebody that is working, okay? They come into a job with pre-existing disability, and that pre-existing disability affects them. However, they are able to work and seek gainful employment. Then they have a subsequent industrial injury, and it needs to be a serious injury. And when you combine their work-related injury and all their pre-existing disability, it's a much greater overall disability claim. Now, what happens is, if you have that fact pattern, you may have a claim for benefits against this trust fund. Now, here are the three elements, and I'm going to go into these very quickly, but keep in mind as a general rule, if you have somebody who's working with significant pre-existing disability, whether it's from a prior work-related injury or a non-industrial injury or a birth defect or a hereditary disability, the fact is, if they're working and they have a pre-existing labor-disabling disability, they have a serious industrial injury, and combined, they're really affects their ability to work, they need to come in and speak to an attorney because they may have a claim for benefits. You need pre-existing labor-disabling disability for the first element. The second element, you need a subsequent industrial injury of above 35% or more standard as a general rule, unless it's an equal or an opposite appendage. For instance, if I have a severe disability to my left arm, it only needs to be a 5% injury to the opposing arm, or same thing with a leg or an eye. So if, as a general rule, it needs to be a very significant industrial injury of above 35% or more standard, or 5% if it's to an opposite appendage. Now, you need to have a combined value when you combine the pre-existing disability and the subsequent industrial injury of above 70% or more. Basically, this is a very important number because this is the number in workers' comp that you're entitled to a life pension. Now, more importantly, and what I really want to focus on is if somebody comes into a job and they have considerable labor disabling disability but they're able to work, then they have a subsequent industrial injury and it's serious, and when you combine it, they're basically unemployable and they have essentially no future earnings capacity. This is a very big case. I may potentially be able to get the person 2/3 of their salary for the rest of their life. Now, let me give you a very quick example. Let's say you have somebody who is missing one arm, okay? And then they have a subsequent industrial injury and they lose the other arm. Now, essentially under workers' compensation, when you have a loss of both arms, you're 100% disabled. Now, you only lost one arm from one of the employers, so that employer theoretically only has to pay around 50% disability. 50% disability is a finite amount, not very much money. But when you combine it, you're 100% disabled. I can potentially get the difference between the 50% disability case, which is actually really small, and 2/3 of your salary for the rest of your life against this trust fund, okay? So once again, if you have any facts that are remotely familiar to this, that is pre-existing labor disabling disability, a serious subsequent industrial injury, and when you combine them, you're very seriously disabled, you need to speak to me or another attorney. My number's below. Feel free to give me a call.